One. Well, welcome in to My Dogs Are Barking on MPW Digital. My name is Landon, and not joined by Austin today. Austin could not be with us, so we'll be missing him. But we will be going over talking about Alabama and Mississippi State Falls 88-84. We're going to talk about that and talk about some of the factors that went into that game. I think there's a lot of positives for Mississippi State, especially coming off of the games they were coming off of versus quality opponents. But we'll also be previewing Missouri tomorrow, which is really a very big opportunity for Mississippi State to get yet another quad one win. That was Wednesday versus Alabama was the start, one of 8 straight quad one games. Well, I guess technically speaking, the quad one games keep going back to Kentucky, right? Yeah, South Carolina. So yeah, 8 straight. But they will play Missouri, who's number 20 in the nation. And then on Tuesday, or no, pardon me, the week after that, they get some time in between Missouri and Georgia to play another quad one game, but this time versus Georgia. So we're going to talk about Alabama and Mississippi State. I think there's a lot of positives that you can point out in this game. I think Josh Hubbard finally showed he got his groove back. And if you're State, that's what you were wanting because it took so long. The problem was there was a lot of other players that were having trouble getting going, or maybe even they didn't even shoot a lot. I mean, I think Claudel Harris, he had 8 points, but I mean, 6 of those 8 points were 3-pointers, and he was just 2 for 3 from 3, and he was 3 from 5 from field goals overall. So, it's not like he went and shot, a ton of shots. In the shots he did take, he made. But Melendez was off. He was 1 of 6 in the game. I mean, Josh Hubbard, he shot 28 shots, which is just not what you want. Not what you want from your guy to have to shoot 28 shots. And I get it. He's a volume scorer, and he can score a lot. And he did. He scored 38. Hit 6 3-pointers in the game, and really did well when it comes to that. But like Riley Kugel, he had 2 points. He was 1 of 3 shooting the ball. Keyshawn Murphy shooting 13 shots is a lot. And then Sean Jones, had 4 shots. It just there was not a lot of other shooters. Honestly, Claudel just was not able to get more shots. I think that would have been helpful, but it was kind of all on Josh Hubbard. But honestly, the offense is not really the part of it in this game to look at. It's the defensive side of things. I want to make sure I get it right. I want to say it was the Crystal Method on Twitter that tweeted this out hours for the game, and gosh, he just nailed it. But it was, that meme where the guy's kind of looking at his hands, and it's like, some Alabama reserve guard getting ready to have the game of his life. And sure enough, Alabama did have someone have the game of their life. And that was Chris Youngblood. Had 23 points for Alabama. He made 7 shots. All 7 of them were 3-point shots. Coming from a guy that has not had that kind of game all year. Now, he's a good player. He's a transfer player, but like it's not a guy that's been like that the entire season. So that was really frustrating because Mark Sears had 17 points, but he was held to more than he could have. Grant Nelson had I would say a very quiet 15 for Alabama, and then Aiden Holloway, he had 12 points. He had a couple threes that were pretty ridiculous. But the long and the short of it is that Alabama was able to score at such a rapid rate, and State had a chance to win the game, and in the end just could not pull it off there in the closing moments of the game. So we're going to get a little bit more into that. I do want to pause and let you know that My Dogs Are Barking is brought to you in part by Arpa's Coffee. And look, if you're going to the game on Saturday, you need something a little. It's not feeling terrible outside. All of a sudden, we went from like the Arctic cold to all of a sudden just kind of being back to normal. So look, if you're a person that likes iced coffee, go get you some iced coffee. If you're a person that loves, just hot coffee, get you some hot coffee. Arpa's has you covered. It's in the heart of the Cotton District, which is the place to hang out, man. There's so many great things going on in the Cotton District in Starkville. People in Starkville have a reason to be excited about that space. And look, if you're going to be there, might as well go ahead and get you some coffee, and we'll save you 15% off. Just mention that you're a listener of the My Dogs Bargain podcast. Get that MyDawgsPod discount. You get 15% off of your order, and you can support a great local business. Support Mr. Jose, the owner of ARPA's. Really, really awesome guy. And man, make sure you do that. And look, Chris Youngblood for Alabama was money on Wednesday versus Mississippi State. It's money, 7 for 10, just money every time he shot the ball. And look, a lot of people talk about money. They talk about wanting to be rich. But let me ask you a question. What does it mean to be rich? Maybe it's less about reaching a magic number and more about discovering the magic in life. Skip Langley is your Batesville, Mississippi, Edward Jones advisor, serving clients in the area and across the state. Count on him for financial strategies that can help support a life you love, because the key to being rich is knowing what counts. So contact him today at 662-563-9843, and together you can find your rich. Edward Jones, member SIPC. So State ends up losing that game. And I'll say this, that the crowd in Starkville was fantastic. It seems like the crowd in Humphrey Coliseum is what we have kind of wanted it to get to, is kind of this point where they are really, really have a lot of momentum. And that was missing for a long time. I mean, that was literally missing for years. And finally, it looks like there's some life in the building again, which is great. And they brought it against Alabama. They really did. And again, State had several chances to kind of take the game. They also had chances where they were down 9, could have kind of let it go and given up the game. But State showed a lot of fight, and that's without Cam Matthews even playing his best game. Again, I think Cam is he's been showing some fatigue because he plays so many minutes during the game that it's got to be difficult to kind of hone in after all these different SEC games. But in this one, I mean, he only had 4 points, and he only had 2 shots, but he played 30 minutes of basketball. And obviously, really, you need him as a defender in this game, much more than the score. But Riley Kugel could not kind of get in a rhythm or kind of find an open shot. Josh Hubbard just made things happen. He drove to the basket, and didn't just kind of sit behind the 3-point line. And we've seen the season where he's kind of sat back and just kind of hope for the best. This time he went and attacked the basket, and he just looked confident. What's interesting about Josh, we were talking in the post game press conference, is that in the games where he has been bad, not shot the ball very well, wasn't very efficient. When he gets to the podium, he is the same guy as he is whenever he scored 38. He's very just across the board, same temperature all the way through. Really impressed with the guys that Chris Jans has at State. Just all of them seem to have that same mentality of not too high, not too low. And it's not like a fan, right? Fan short for fanatics. So fans are getting up and getting crazy and yelling and being super excited and also super disappointed. But they kind of have a level of objectivity about it, because remember that there's no one who wants to win those games more than the actual players who are in the game playing it. So I hate it for Josh, but man, he played such a great game. And I think they're hoping this kind of leads to some level of confidence going forward. But 50% from the field is good, but 28 shots is a lot of shots. I wish he was able to get a little bit more help. And look, sometimes there's just going to be somebody going off in these games versus State. That's what's happened. But like Grant Nelson was not efficient from 3. Aiden Holloway, he's 3 for 7. But Chris Youngblood, 70% from 3 will do. And look, as a team, Alabama shot 48.4. So 50% from 3. It's the same thing that happened in Kentucky. It was almost a mirrored game from Kentucky, where you watch it and both teams are close by. And again, I'm not gonna continue to keep it going after we've heard so much about it. But you just seem to have the same kind of flow to the game as Kentucky has. And any game where it gets up in the 90s, I have a bad feeling about how State is going to play in that game. State's got to play better lockdown defense. It seems like when teams get to the paint, like there's no Jarvis Fernardo, like there's no Jimmy Bell. There's nobody down low that has that presence for them, like a true center. Keyshawn Murphy defending in the paint one-on-one, he's not a great defender. However, Mississippi State plays so smart, and they're not afraid to double team whenever someone comes into the paint. And that's why you see so many players on the other teams getting overwhelmed and turning the ball over is because of the way that they kind of attack the ball in the paint, because they understand like they don't have just a big guy, a big five to be able to make plays for them there. So I think State fans have a lot to be encouraged by, but in the end, like State just couldn't get this done against a much better team in a game that would have, I believe this fully, had Mississippi State beaten Alabama, I think they really solidified themselves as a top 5 seed, because then you have a win versus a projected number 1 overall seed, along with the other quad 1 wins you have. With this loss, Mississippi State drops to 4-4 in quad 1 games. They're 4-2, or pardon me, 4-1 in quad 2 games. South Carolina, if you know, that's a quad 3 win. That they now have twice. Well, it's quad 2 during the second game they played against them, but the quad 3 for the first one. But they have opportunities upcoming. So I mean, I think if you win versus Missouri and versus Georgia, you feel good despite whatever happens to Florida. But I got a bad feeling about the Georgia game. We'll get into that next week. But we will take a quick break, and then I want to get into previewing this Missouri team for Mississippi State, because this Missouri team that the State is playing is 3-4 in quad 1 games. They beat Ole Miss 83-75. They lose to Texas. They lost to Auburn. Lost to Illinois. Just in terms of quad 1 games, you know, a quad 1 game win they have 76-67 early in the season versus number 1 Kansas. I mean, that'll do, right? That'll do. They did get beaten by Memphis at the early part of the year, but they've really done well over the last little bit. They played 8 quad 4 games, so they played a little bit easier of a schedule than Mississippi State. Played 2 quad 3 games and really didn't have, neither of those wins were in double digits. One over Jacksonville State, one versus Cal. They've only played 3 quad 2 games. So you see what I'm saying? Like, this Missouri team probably has not been tested the way Mississippi State has, but they've beaten some very good teams in the games they've played versus them. So we're going to get into that and some of the players to know in this game versus Missouri on Saturday for Mississippi State and Mizzou. So we will take a look at that game whenever we come back from the break. It's going to be 12 o'clock tomorrow with Missouri and Mississippi State. So we will take a quick break. We're going to listen to an ad from Neil, and then we'll be right back.
All MPW digital podcasts are brought to you by our friends at Parish Brewing Company, located in the heart of Cajun country in Broussard, Louisiana. Parish Brewing Company's simple goal is to make awesome craft brewed beer, and they do it remarkably well. The doctor is introducing their new go-to IPA, Dr. Juice. It's a highly crushable juice bomb, dry hopped with a blend of their favorite hand-selected hops from the Yakima Valley in Washington. Dr. Juice's drinkability is sneaky good, considering it clocks in at 6% ABV. The pour glows a rich cantaloupe hue with a thick frosted haze, soft mouthfeel, an aroma and taste that's full of passion fruit, papaya, and blood orange, making it drink like a glass of freshly squeezed juice. They also have Ghost in the Machine. It's a double IPA brewed with obscene quantities of hand-selected Citra hops from Yakima Valley. Expect pungent grapefruit flavors and aromas, tropical fruit, less harsh bitterness than most IPAs. Again, it's Parish Brewing Company. Wherever you get your beer, check out Parish. Make sure that you look for them, because any beer that you get from Parish is going to be absolutely outstanding. Thank you,
MPW Digital. Talking about the matchup between Missouri and Mississippi State. Missouri 16-4, 5-2 in the conference. Mississippi State's now 16-5, 4-4 in the conference. Missouri in this game, and for whatever it's worth, and I don't think it's worth very much, but Mississippi State has a 71% chance to beat Missouri, according to ESPN. But again, who do they know? Missouri lost their first game of the season versus Memphis, but that's a very first game. They played a very close game versus Illinois middle way through, or towards the end of the non-conference. They beat Kansas in the early part of the season, and then as of their last 5 games, they just are coming off a win versus Ole Miss, beating them 83-75. They lose to Texas by 7 or by 8. They beat Arkansas by almost 20. They beat Florida on the road, 83-82, huge win. So they're going to, their best win in the SEC for sure is going to be Florida on the road. That's huge. But who is it for Missouri that kind of gives you pause, kind of makes you think, okay, who do we want, Cam Matthews to guard in this game? I think when kind of looking at the matchup, you kind of look at their matchup against Ole Miss. Missouri was able, or Missouri's going to be a team that is pretty good shooting the three. They're 44% from three against Ole Miss. Caleb Grill had 22 points off the bench. Tamar Bates is their guy. He had 26 versus Ole Miss. And he can shoot the three, which I know Mississippi. I know State fans have got to be very nervous about. I mean, he hit 4 threes versus Ole Miss. And then it's Tamar Bates is kind of your main guy. That's the one that you want to really look out for. Caleb Grill is, he had a good game, but scoring 22, but he's not average. He's averaging 13 a game this season, so it's not like he's every game going off like he did versus Ole Miss. But Bates is your guy that you're going to want to shut down and really just, I guess, mainly not leave open for a 3-point opportunity. Because if he is left open for a three, he's going to make you pay for it. And look, State's, we've seen it over and over again, and I mean over and over again. There's guys that you don't even count on, playing well, that come out of nowhere and do really well. And look, even though Bates is their guy, he's had some games where he's kind of disappeared, but still been their kind of leading scorer. So I think in this game, this is a great opportunity for Mississippi State to get another quad one win at home. And Austin and I both predicted State to lose to Alabama on Wednesday before the game. I think our show came out Monday, but we were just saying it was not a great matchup for Mississippi State. I think this is the opposite. I don't think Missouri does not have the shooters that Alabama has. Alabama could make you pay. I'm not exaggerating. There's 5 different guys on the floor, or 4 out of 5 guys on the floor, but on the team, there's 5-6 guys who can make you pay from three. And the guy who ended up making State pay from 3-point land wasn't even a guy that counted on to do it. So that's how you know you're in trouble there. I look at this Missouri team. I think Mississippi State is going to be able to limit them defensively, but they are an efficient. They can be an efficiently shooting 3-point team. Anthony Robertson II is a guy who can also shoot the three a little bit. Jacob Cruz shoots a pretty good amount for Missouri. Not a great. He's a really big guard. He's 6'8", but not very efficient from 3-point land, especially away. He's only shooting 25% from 3-point land in away games. But I think in this game, if you had to say which direction do you think this goes in, I think it goes in the favor of Mississippi State. Being in Starkville is a huge advantage for Mississippi State. And I think State's going to take advantage of that. I think after the showing versus Alabama, I think you saw that Josh Hubbard could get involved and kind of take over a game, and he did. But the rest of the crew's kind of got to come along with him. I think I would not be surprised at all if State wins the game Saturday versus Missouri in a hard-fought game, in a game that Missouri's, again, another quad one opponent, and they're ranked. I mean, this would be a great win for Mississippi State. Get their 17th win, get their 5th win in conference play with, several games left to go. And then, then they have to go on the road versus Georgia on February 8th. And man, I don't feel good about it. I think State's in trouble in that game, for whatever reason. Georgia couldn't shoot, and they play very good defense. They give up 66 points a game or so, somewhere around there. And they've lost the last couple games that Georgia has lost have been fairly close. I mean, they almost put off a win versus Auburn. They lose narrowly versus Arkansas. Now their loss versus Florida was extensive, but I don't know. I got an odd feeling about State going on the road there to play Georgia team. But again, we're going to go more in detail about that later on. Let's look lastly, as we finish up the show here, at some of the statistics for this Bulldog team. Missouri tomorrow at 12 o'clock in the Hump. Tickets are as low as $38. So get to that. The Humphrey Coliseum's environment has been so good, man. And then State goes on the road, plays at Georgia on February 8th. 3 days later, they have Florida at home on a Tuesday night. That's going to be huge. And then February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, no love lost in that one. I'll tell you what, on the road at Ole Miss could be a huge game as they're finishing up the last bit of their schedule. And then look, the last 3 games for Mississippi State. Well, I'll tell you what, the 4 out of the last 5 games for Mississippi State, Oklahoma, it's on the road, but it's Oklahoma. Alabama on the road. That's not going to be good. But then you got LSU and Texas at home, and you go on the road versus Arkansas. I think State will be favored to win in 4 of those 5 of the final games, which would take them, if they get the win Saturday, to 10 conference games. You'll take 10-8 all day. I mean, 10-8's a 6 seed, possibly 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. You end up surprising, winning another game, but maybe versus Georgia as well, and sneak a couple more in there. I don't know. State's got a great opportunity as they come through, but they cannot slip up versus a team like Missouri. So I think State's going to take care of business in that one this week. I just don't think they have the offensive prowess that some of these other teams have. You're going to have to cover Bates and make sure that he's shut down and make somebody else beat you, whether it be Caleb Grill or Robinson II. I think State's going to try to make sure those other guys do it because Bates can beat you. But I think State's going to see if they can limit that. They're going to have to because a loss versus Missouri would just not do you well going on the road against Georgia. It's so hard to win in the league. And so when you lose a game at home, then you got to turn around and go at Georgia. And then guess what? You feel okay about that? Come home versus another top 5 team in Florida. It's brutal. It's brutal, man. So we are excited to see that. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. It's just at MyDawgsPod. Would love to see you there. And love for you to give us a follow. Follow us on Substack. And yeah, we would love to be able to hear from you. But until then, we'll holler at you next time. We'll talk about the recap of this Missouri game. And we'll get to all of it later on our next show. I believe it'll be Monday. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter at MyDawgsPod. And we will see you. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.